Good day, everybody. Hopefully I'm live and you're hearing me without too much issue. I am going to get started here in just a few minutes. I expect that we should have no problems with the stream, but if I am, just let me know. I'll try to watch the chat. It is over on a different monitor, so I try to keep an eye on it. But yeah, I'm glad to see a few people here. Hopefully we'll get through some really cool open source stuff, and you guys can kind of understand what I do every day. You can kind of see a preview here on my screen, but there's more. There's a whole other tab here. And then I've got a whole list of other things over on the other screen as well that I'll talk about, and that we'll go through, and I'll kind of talk about why I chose the things that I've chosen so far. So is my keyboard super loud when I type, by the way, because I am just using the built-in microphone on this machine today. I normally record from my office, but as you know, the air conditioner in my office is super loud. And while I've gotten better at post-production audio editing, I am definitely not set up to do any kind of, editing live while I'm running, streaming kind of thing. So just want to make sure it's not too horrible for you guys. Hey Martin, how are you? I see Scott there on the chat. I see we've got 18 or so people. That's great. I'm very happy about that. I'm always worried when I try to do a live stream that there's going to be 0 people show up. So it would just turn into a recording that I would post later. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you're excited to go through this stuff with me. I was going to do this as a video recording, and I thought, this is a topic that would be decent as a live stream, I think. So we're going to give it a shot and see how it looks. Yeah, Scott, no, this is Homer. I did a video on Homer, I don't know, a couple months back, maybe a month or so back. I've really gotten into it. I like it quite a bit. It's very clean. You can make it very minimal, which I am definitely a person who likes minimalism. So I kind of like that, and it's really easy to just set these links up. It just has a little YAML config file. You go in and set them up. And then I did just find the other day you can set up extra tabs. So it was getting like super full, so I set up like a second tab for some of my stuff here as well. But yeah. So yeah, you can set up extra tabs here at the top and everything like that. So yeah, Homer is one that I'm using right now. I do want to try Heimdall. I've seen it. Dash Machine is something that somebody else has suggested to me as well as a really good one. And then Organizer looks really great. If you guys haven't ever checked out Ibracorp, on his channel, he did one on Organizer and using it with free IPA for LDAP authentication, which was pretty awesome. So I've been wanting to get back to that and give it a shot too. But I took down my free IPA server a while back. I was using that server for some other testing, so I need to get it put back together and give that stuff another try and see how it goes too. All right, I see a lot of people chatting in the chat room there. That's good. I'm glad you guys are doing well. I'm glad you're here with me today. I don't know, depending on where you are, it could be evening, it could be nighttime, it could be morning, it could be midday, kind of like it is here. So yeah, my wife and I just finished mowing and weed eating and edging and all that kind of stuff in my yard, which is a really pretty big yard here in South Texas. So it was 91 this morning at 8:30, 91 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty warm, and it's humid here, which is weird. It's the desert, but because of this lake that we have, it's very humid. So I'm still trying to cool off, actually. So if you hear me drinking a little bit of water, don't worry about me. I'm just trying to rehydrate a bit. Let's get started. I'm ready. So I will try to check back on the chat eventually. I do have to kind of switch tabs over here on this other screen so I can kind of keep an eye on my notes for what I'm going to talk about today. But right off the bat, I do want to talk about Homer. I talked about it a little bit just now. It's a really great one. I've got a video out there on how to get it installed and set up, and it's basically running in Docker. So one of the big things, if you watch any of my channel or my videos, you'll see that if I can run something in Docker, I try to run something in Docker. I love Docker. Honestly, when it first came out in 2014, I didn't get Docker. I didn't grasp at all what it was or how it was beneficial. I heard about it on a couple of podcasts. I kind of went and looked at it and read about it. I went to a Linux users group here in Texas, Texas Linux Fest, and they talked about it from a couple of companies that used it were talking about it. And I just truly did not grasp what it was or how it could be beneficial. And I wanted to try Rocket Chat several years ago, and they had it set up where you had to use Docker. And I thought, okay, well, I mean, this is now my chance to really kind of figure out what this thing is. And little by little, I started kind of grasping, like, okay, I see what it's doing now, and I didn't understand exactly how powerful it was. But the more that I've used it, the more that it's just been, like, tremendously amazing to have something like Docker and a tool like Docker, especially out there that's open source and free. So Docker definitely runs probably 99.9% of the stuff that I'll talk about today. Pretty much any of these things that are web pages and websites that I'm running are running in Docker somehow, somewhere. Now these all run in different servers that I have set up. So my setup, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of that overview, is really, I use laptops for the most part. And those laptops are just, to me, beneficial because, one, they're extra hardware that I've got laying around that I thought, I could do something useful with this thing. So I put an SSD in it. I put as much RAM in them as I can shove in it, as they seem like they'll take. I stick a Linux distro on them. They're not the newest laptops. They're probably 5 or 6, 7 years old at this point. I've got one. My main one that I use in the office that you guys see most of my recordings on is a Core i7 laptop, and it's got 4 cores and 16 gigabytes of RAM and an SSD, and it runs Linux tremendously well, of course. The one that I run my server is a Core i5 with an SSD on it, and it's got 12 gigs of RAM, and I run tons of these applications that you're looking at on that one, and again through Docker. So the beauty of Docker is that virtualization, right? Like, some things I run a virtual machine for, but a lot of things where you're just trying to run a web application is where Docker just suddenly comes in and says, you know what, you don't have to set up an entire virtual machine and dedicate gigs of hard drive space for this instance of this web application you want to run. Just let Docker do that for you, and let Docker kind of handle that, and you can manage the memory allocation and stuff like that. And again, through a tool like Portainer, man, it makes it so great to have something like that. So yeah, Docker is definitely my tool, and then my hardware is most of the time kind of laptops. Now I do have a desktop that I built last year. During the pandemic, I had asked my wife for a desktop for my birthday, and we just bought all the components and put it together based on a video out there on YouTube that I saw that was kind of like a sub $500 desktop, and it really was. It was about $400, $450. And it runs a Ryzen chip, and I run Proxmox on that thing, and then I've got 16 gigs of RAM in it, and I just allocate a couple of virtual machines, and then I run Docker in the virtual machine, and it runs terrific. So really, anything that I run, if I can put Docker on it, I do. And you guys have seen that in my videos. If I can run it in Docker, I try to run it in Docker. I try to find the Docker way to do things, because I find it very easy to maintain as well once you really get used to that ecosystem and what you're trying to do with it. So yeah, I love Docker. Of course, it's a tremendous tool. When we talk about Portainer, I did a video just the other day. If you guys haven't seen it, if you've been wondering about Portainer or wanting to look at it, I'm going to bring this up, and I'm sorry for blinding you if you're in a dark room there. This is my Portainer, so I've got Portainer running locally on that laptop that I talked about, that Core i5, and then my server here that I talked about that I built last year is the desktop server, and then down at the bottom here I've got my my Mac, my iMac that I'm sitting on, which actually runs Docker as well. So these two guys are running Portainer Agent, and then I really just log into this one Portainer instance and pick whichever one I want to do to manage my Docker containers from those things. So Portainer, I did that video about how to install Portainer CE and set it up with Portainer Agent to do this kind of setup. And one of the things I love is one of the people from Portainer saw the video, and he commented just last night or just yesterday, maybe this morning, I can't remember, that he was verifying that yes, the Portainer for Business is what pays for the community edition of Portainer to keep going. 99%. He said, of people, or 90-something% of people will probably never use Portainer for Business, but the ones who do are the ones who are actually financially supporting the continued development and effort that goes into Portainer Community Edition. So when I talk to you guys, when I talk about things on videos where I say, hey, here's this way you can pay for this service. I know you guys want to self-host, and I know you want open source software, and I do too. But for some of these things, I do donate money, and the money that you guys give me, the money I get from YouTube, the money I get from Patreon, I try to give back on these open source projects. So there's several of these projects that I'm a patron of, or I give to them through GitHub payments or whatever method they have, because I love their projects and I use their projects on a very regular basis, and I want to support that project. It means tons to me that you guys want to support me and be here and listen to my videos and listen to me to ramble on. A lot of times I have to cut out so much stuff when I make videos. It's not funny. Like, I know my videos are long, 30, 40 minutes sometimes, but you know, I've cut those down from like 3 hours of me yammering on. So just understand, I really do try to cut down to the essence of it, and then give you a little bit of extra where I ran into problems so that you don't have those same issues, or if you run into them, you know how to fix them. But yeah, Portainer is terrific, and it's a shining example of how one side of their business helps pay for the open source side of the business. So I can't say how much I appreciate those guys for doing this and providing this to us. I'm going to check the chat real quick because I see a lot of chat happening here. 93 degrees in Houston, I believe it, and it's probably more humid in Houston than it is in Del Rio. So I feel for you. It's miserable with the humidity. I think there's a better, more permanent alternative for Nextcloud. A better or more permanent alternative for Nextcloud? Man, that is a hard question. There are so many open source syncing things today that I'm interested in several of them. You know, I've seen Pydio, looks like one that's really interesting. People have asked me about that one in the past. I kind of want to get that set up and try it. You know, the thing about that is, when I'm testing it, it's hard for me to say, man, this is great, because a lot of times I'm not intent on using it for a long period of time unless I just realize, wow, this just solved a problem I didn't even realize I had. I have used Nextcloud in the past and quite a bit. My fear with Nextcloud is if I become really dependent on it and I don't have a solid backup strategy for that thing. And with Nextcloud, you can go crazy with your storage and stuff like that. It worries me that I'll lose a lot of the things that I'm putting in Nextcloud if I don't have a good backup strategy for that thing. So that's why I kind of haven't stuck with it and kept it going, and I kind of jump around from where I run it and things like that. Pydio would be the same way. Sync thing. There's so many syncing services that if it's the syncing you're looking for in Nextcloud, there are probably other syncing services that might be better. If it's the other things that Nextcloud offers, though, I don't know that there's a better opportunity to run things as kind of a single unit like Nextcloud. You know, Nextcloud integrates with Office, and Nextcloud integrates with voice and video chat, and Nextcloud, you know, they have so many different things that really kind of integrate into it that it becomes that tool that could be really useful for a small business or a family or things like that, beyond just, you know, doing syncing of files. So man, Martin, that's a tough question. I am interested to try out some of those others, so I will be doing those in the future. So maybe we'll figure out if there's a better one out there, depending on what you're looking for. Let's see. Linux container, LXC. Scott, I know you love LXC. I want to pick your brain about that when we talk tomorrow, so I'm excited about that, because I looked at that and I was looking at it on Proxmox, and I kind of didn't grasp exactly how that works different or why it's better for Docker, but I'm interested to kind of hear your thoughts on it and see what you think about it for sure. So let's see. Yeah. OwnCloud. Yeah, so OwnCloud started off as the thing, right? And then the Nextcloud guys, I think, were part of the OwnCloud team, and they split off because they didn't like the direction, maybe. I don't really remember the whole story, but there is a story back there somewhere if you want to go find it. But they split off and kind of made their own thing. So there is OwnCloud. It is still out there. And then Nextcloud was kind of a split from that. And at these points, they're probably completely different code sources. But they forked OwnCloud and then, you know, kind of went off. And in fact, sometimes when you install clients, you'll still see OwnCloud bits here and there where it shows OwnCloud still, where they haven't updated enough to get the OwnCloud name out of it for Nextcloud stuff. But yeah, OwnCloud is still out there, and it's still potentially a good option. I haven't tried it in a long time, but it could be. So yeah, so good comments. I like the comments that are coming, guys. And if I miss your comment, please don't feel like it's a slight or anything. I'm just kind of scanning through real quick, trying to see what I can see, and then jumping back to what I was talking about. So I'm going to go back over here because this is really supposed to be about what do I use every day and why. So Matomo, I talked about this one a long time ago. If you go to my show notes website, this little thing just grabs a few little statistics, and really what I look at is this little chart that shows up right here, which is how many people are visiting my website and using the stuff that I take the time to put the documentation together. So I take the time to learn how to do whatever it is that I'm putting on video, which sometimes is as minutes, sometimes as hours, sometimes as days, sometimes it's weeks. I fight with something and really try to figure out, like, okay, why is this not working the way I thought it should? And then once I get it, I go and I make the video and I edit the video, and hours and hours and hours again on that stuff. But then a lot of those things I go and make show notes, because it does have command line stuff and it has configuration files and all kinds of things that I want you to have access to. And sometimes just giving you the link to the GitHub is fine, but sometimes I want to give you what I did, because I do change things and I feel like those changes are worthwhile for you guys. So I hope you appreciate that. But for me, that's a lot of extra effort to go do those things. And so I use this just to track basically how many people are using that. And as long as it stays up here, in the teens or 20s, then I'm good. If it gets way down here where it's like 3 or 4 and it's just nobody ever, then I'll probably stop doing it, because it does take up a good amount of my time. And I've said this before on videos, but I have a full-time job, 40 plus hours a week, that I work for a software company that sells only to government. So they only sell software for government use. And I work in the public safety division of that company, which is law enforcement, fire, EMS software, that kind of stuff. So if you ever wonder about my background, I was a law enforcement officer for 10 years. And then I went back to college when I got out of law enforcement, and I finished my physics degree in undergraduate school, and then I went to graduate school for applied physics, and then I worked at CERN over in Switzerland for a while, and then I came back and worked at Intel for about a year here in New Mexico. And then I finally kind of settled into a place where I was like, I miss law enforcement. I loved it so much, but because of my eyes, I couldn't do it anymore. So I said, I need to find something I really enjoy, and I found a company there locally where I lived in Lubbock, Texas, at the time that actually had software for law enforcement. And I love software, as you know, and I love law enforcement, so I thought, man, this is a perfect mix for me. And I've since then moved to the office that works out of Troy, Michigan, though I live on the whole other border. They live on the Canada border. I live on the Mexico border. I still work with that group out of there, and I do like that job, but it takes up a lot of my time every week. So then I do these videos, which probably take up another 20 or 25 hours a week to get those things ready. And then, on top of that, adding stuff to my show notes takes extra hours sometimes to get everything kind of done and ready and make sure that it looks right and is done. And you guys sometimes catch a mistake for me and tell me about it so I can go fix it, which is super useful, and I appreciate that. You just understand. The only other thing I really like is this. This is super useful. It's not useful, but it's interesting to me to see like where the majority of my viewers. So anything that's kind of got a dark shading is where somebody has watched a video, and I can just hover and kind of see a count. So Australia, I mean, just all the way around the world, which is awesome to me. That's amazing that we have the technology today that I can reach people from anywhere in the world and help them with something, which is just absolutely incredible for me. Most of my viewers are in the U.S., which I expect, right? That's fine. Alaska, mainland U.S. But yeah, I mean, around the world, Canada, South America, it's just amazing to me. So if you want to know about the U.S. education system, ask somebody where anything over here is. Other than the continent, and even maybe that, they may not be able to tell you. But I can tell you that if I don't hover, sometimes I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at. I kind of know generally what it is. But our U.S. education system, as far as geography, is horrible. So I can point out Australia because it's gigantic, right? But yeah, a lot of this other parts of the world, South America, North America, right? I can do the continents, but yeah, countries I have to hover. But it's still really cool to be able to kind of see like what do I get out of that. Metabase is, again, my wife's business on the side. She does eBay stuff, and I collect statistics for her reporting every month for what she sells. And we just make these little dashboards Metabase is such an incredible tool. I have a very old video on it. If you haven't seen it and you're looking for a tool that is super easy to use to make charts and graphs and stuff, it's not just about financial stuff or whatever. This is what we use it for, but this thing is just absolutely incredible. It's open source. It's free. The community is very active. When I've asked questions, they've always come back and said, hey, did you check this? Did you try this? Did you do this? They always give me really good answers. They're super great. So Metabase I've loved. And again, they have a pay model, so to support their free and open source version. But this thing, this just pulls data from a MySQL database, and I update the database every month, and it goes out and it says, oh, hey, I see new stuff. Here's all your new numbers. So we can kind of see how she's doing from her business perspective. And when it comes tax time, we've got a lot of this information to fall back on for taxes and stuff like this. Now, this is since she started from the very beginning. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see like, hey, she does okay. So we can look every month and see how our months are going and stuff like that too. So Metabase is just an absolutely tremendous tool, and I love it. So yeah, that That one is one that we use all the time. It's not exactly every day, but it's definitely every month, and probably weekly. I kind of check it to make sure things are running correctly and stuff like that. They put out a lot of updates for Metabase as well. Let me check the comments here. Watching from South Africa, that's awesome. South Africa. I cannot tell you guys how much that blows my mind. And like I've had discussions with Corp over in Australia. I've had discussions with people in New Zealand. Live audio video chats around the world, which just boggles the mind for somebody my age. Which I don't want to date myself, but when I was a kid, you had a phone that you had to rotate the dial on. To make a phone call, and if you called long distance, it was going to cost you a lot of money. And nowadays, we can talk to people video and audio live, from anywhere in the world. That's just amazing. So South Africa, that's awesome. Let's see. I'm going to enlarge this freaking screen because the chat is just too small for my old eyes. Here we go. Yeah. Let's see. Hey man, I appreciate it. G. Scott, I do. Thank you. I like the in-depth side of my videos too. It's more than a lot of people want. A lot of people want those 10-minute videos on YouTube, but that's kind of why I got into doing this. I saw those 10-minute videos on YouTube that were great to introduce you to a topic, but they never gave you any detail. They never told me exactly like, how do I go and do this myself? Like, hey, here's Metabase. Great. Thank you so much for showing me Metabase. Now I'm interested. That encouraged me to go look, but I felt like a lot of people would probably be like, well, that didn't really tell me enough to get started. So I thought, well, I'm going to start making videos where I'll show people how to go do this and maybe get them more interested in doing things that are open source and self-hosted. And so I'm glad you like that style. I hope all of you guys like that style. That's my style, and that's just how I am. And I'm a wordy guy. I can talk forever about next to nothing, which is terrible. Let's see. What do I use for reverse proxy? Oh, I use Nginx Proxy Manager. Yeah, I use Nginx Proxy Manager for reverse proxy. That's another tool that definitely is used pretty much every day. Yeah, Nginx Proxy Manager is another one that's just a tremendous tool. I was so excited when I found this thing. I found it pretty early last year, maybe early in 2020 or late 2019. And I really was looking for, I was getting better at Nginx, I guess you'd say. But I was definitely not great at it, and I would often come across things that just gave me weird issues that I didn't know how to fix. And so I started looking like, is there a GUI to set this up? There's got to be a GUI somewhere, right? And I happened to come across this thing on a Reddit post somewhere, and I went and checked it out, and I mean, just blew my mind how much this had. And I don't use everything that is in here. I use the proxy section, and I use the access lists. Other than that, I use Let's Encrypt for this as L certificates and stuff, but users, I don't really need to put extra users because I'm the only one that uses it. The audit log, again, I'm the only one that uses it. Settings, I don't really mess with. Redirection, I haven't used. Just so much stuff here that I don't really put to use. I use the proxy side of it, and that's it. But Nginx Proxy Manager has so many other things that you can do with it. To be honest, I've kind of just scratched the surface a little bit. So I love it. Yeah, it's a great reverse proxy. I've heard people talk about traffic. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's spelled traffic. So I've wanted to try it, but the few times that I've kind of looked at it, it was a little bit daunting to me to try to switch to something else. But I may go back and look at it again now that I'm a little bit more experienced and see if I might try it again. HA Proxy is another one that people really talk about a lot. Caddy is one that people use quite a bit. So there's other ones out there, but this works for me, so I don't know that I have a particular reason to switch at this point. But yeah, Trafic looked like it had some good UI pieces and things like that to it that kind of make it useful, I guess, from a standpoint beyond setting it up. But yeah, Nginx Proxy Manager is kind of my go-to tool for proxies for sure. Yeah, and I always try to figure out like, okay, how do I proxy whatever it is that I'm running now beyond just running Nginx Proxy Manager. Definitely one of my favorites. Scott T. Verbose. We're both verbose. That's going to be a long discussion tomorrow, Scott. Let's see. Chile. Hey, Chile, awesome. Chile is awesome, yeah. I do not speak Spanish. My wife is originally from Mexico and is a Spanish speaker, so if I ever have to translate things and Google Translate can't do it and it's Spanish or anything like that, anything close to Spanish, I get her to come look at it and see if she can determine what somebody's saying in my comments. A lot of times I get comments that I have to use Google Translate or something, and I'll try to translate it and then comment back so that they can read it more easily. But yeah, I'm glad you can understand all my babble in English here from Chile. That's good. Next proxy manager, Quebec, Canada. Yes, that's the office that I work out of is close to Canada. I don't know that it's close to Quebec though, but yeah, it's close to Canada at least. Cooler up there, a little bit cooler most of the time. What I'm using for my dashboard, that is Homer. I talked about that earlier at the beginning. You may have come in a little bit late, but this is the Homer dashboard. So yeah, it's really great. You can kind of go into the config file and turn off a bunch of the stuff that takes up a lot of vertical space, because I do zoom in my my everything that I use, honestly, because my eyes are terrible. So I don't use things at like 100% because it's too small most of the time. So I zoom things, and all the stuff that takes up extra space I try to get rid of. So this is very minimal, and I'm a minimalist kind of person, as I've said before. Yeah, definitely Homer is one of my favorite dashboards. Yeah, I'm not trying to go too short. If sometimes I have a video that's short, it's not intentional that it's short. It's just sometimes I can cover the content without having to say too much about it. Sometimes I feel like I go on long tirades and rants about things that have nothing to do with the content, and I prefer to save you guys that pain, so I try to cut that out. At the time, I think it's really important, and when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, oh, I don't even want to listen to this, so I cut it out. So I listen to my videos like multiple times as I'm editing, and then I listen to it when it's finished at least twice to make sure that I feel like it's at least halfway pertinent to what I'm trying to show you and give you in that video. So my remote access stuff, which is another one that I use all the time, you can see that I've got two different things here. Mesh Central, which for me is really an RMM, so that's a remote machine management system. So this is what I use for going and actually, remote controlling my local machines here at the house. Any machines that I need access to, and I've got two-factor authentication set up on this thing as well. So I have to get my my two-factor stuff out. But let's see, we'll get it. And then I got to pick the right one. Let's see. There we go. We'll get logged in here. So if you have never seen Mesh Central, I love this tool. It's another great open source tool that Intel, I think, supports the work on this. There's just, if you're a Windows admin and you're looking for an RMM that doesn't cost a ton of money, this thing was built for people who use Windows, honestly. It just happens to work with Mac and Linux. But yeah, I mean, like any of these machines, I can just basically go and jump on them and start using them. Now, I don't have my Pi 4 turned on, that's why it's gray like that, but I can go jump on one of these machines and I can start doing something, through the browser window. I can take over the desktop basically, and you can see you get all these little tabs, and I'll enlarge the view here a little bit. So I can go here and take on the desktop. I can go here and just get to a terminal, and you can go and do file exchange stuff. You can look at events that are happening on the machine. You can check out details about the machine, and then you have a console as well. So if I just wanted to go and click into the desktop of that machine out there, there it is. It's a little bit zoomed in because I haven't set up the machine to be the right monitor size, but if I click like that, it's a little better, and I can log in straight from here as long as the machine's awake. So this is I can drag this, I think, yeah. This is Pop! OS, so people have asked me what I've been using lately. I'm using Pop! OS 2104 on that machine where I record most of my videos, but I can remote control this machine, and it's really great. I like this machine, this control software quite a bit, and then I can, of course, disconnect when I'm done. But Mesh Central is an awesome tool for remote control as far as remote machine management. So if you're trying to control a lot of machines, you can put them in groups, you can add more users, you can add admins, you can add people to certain groups of machines so they only have access to certain ones, and then you can allow like your desktop users who you might support for a business the ability to say like, hey, you sent me a help request, I'm ready to jump on your machine, can I do it? And they'll give you the approval. It's something you control from here, which I kind of don't like, as far as like, I wouldn't want this for like a support kind of thing where I'm supporting a client who I don't normally deal with, like through my computer repair side of my business. But definitely I love this for like remote machine management for a small business, for a home, anything like that. Mesh Central is terrific, and it's got, again, I probably just barely scratched the surface of what it can really do, but I definitely have gotten used to the tools more and can put the tools to better use now. Like when you click this thing, one thing to know is, like, I click it, you see it doesn't quite go all the way full screen. You still see the whole thing. If I disconnect from it, if you shift and click it, it'll go full screen. So something that I didn't know, and something that's not really like just shown in the anywhere that I've ever noticed. But yeah, like I think it says right here, like, you know, hold shift, but I just never noticed that in the little popover. So yeah, definitely like a little, you know, tip for the pros there. It does have two-factor authentication. It's got all kinds of stuff you can do with your account. So yeah, Mesh Central I use quite a bit here at home. Remotely is one that I've done several times. Now this one, the developer takes small breaks, hiatuses whenever he's got a lot of things going on. He has a full-time job just like most of you guys, and he works really hard on this project. But if you've ever been looking for a self-hosted open source alternative to TeamViewer or AnyDesk or GoToAssist or any of those other ones, you know, BombGar or any of the ones that are really expensive actually to use, and you're just trying to do like remote assistance for a family member, or maybe you're a small business and you have a few clients that you do remote assistance for, I love this tool. It works on Windows and it works on Linux. It does not have a Mac client yet, but he said he's going to work on that eventually. But yeah, remotely, when you log into remotely, you really get kind of simple stuff. So you log in, and this one you get a code. So your user goes to your page, and actually they don't even have to go and log in. They would just go to downloads, and then they would download whichever one of these versions you tell them for whatever they're running. So if they've got Windows 32-bit, you'd tell them get this one, you know, 64-bit that one. If they've got Ubuntu Linux, I think this will work on several different Linux distros actually, but he says he supports Ubuntu 18.04, 20.04 and up. I've tried it on several and it seems to work fine. But yeah, you can get this. Now there's some extras you have to install for the client to work. I've kind of chatted with him about doing an app image to make that easier. He kind of thought it was interesting, but we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, this one is great for getting on client machines, and because they download this client, they install it. When they run it, you give them your server address, or it'll pick up your server address depending on how they do it, and then it gives them a code every time they start the program, so the code changes. And then they give you the code, and from the remote management side, you type in the code, and then you can access their machine, and it asks them for permission before you access it. So I love this for like remote client support like tools. So that's why I have this, because I do have very few clients that I do computer support for, but I do use it for them when they call me and they need help. So yeah, remotely is a tremendous open source tool that I can't say enough good things about it. And the developer is very responsive about questions like over on his Reddit page. He does put his stuff on archive while he's while he's on hiatus, because he don't want a bunch of bugs to come in and fill up the queue. He's kind of like me. He doesn't like to have things sitting there waiting. Like my iPhone is terrible for me, but I love it because I see the notifications, but I have to open them and look at them as soon as I see them. So it's just one of those things. Let me check the comments over here again. Make sure I'm not getting too far behind or off topic for what you guys want to hear. If I can get my mouse to behave. Thank you. I'm glad you liked the remotely video. Yeah, it's great. I love remotely. Let's see. Oh man. So I'm gonna try to say your name. Forgive me, but I'm gonna say Siddharth. I think is Siddharth. Maybe if I'm wrong, I apologize. But you're asking me what I think of Microsoft's push into open source, which I'll tell you right now. Anybody wants to get into open source, I don't care if it was the devil himself. If he said, I'm going to give you some open source stuff, good job, good on you for trying. I'm not a fan of Microsoft stuff for the most part, honestly. I've never really liked it. I used Windows forever as coming up in through college and using it in law enforcement and everything else because you just have to. But when I really got introduced to the Linux world and got into it, and Mac, before that really, that just kind of changed the way that I work, because my Mac just never went down. It never had to be rebooted. It never griped at me about, hey, you have to reboot now because you installed some updates. It just updated and said, here you go, keep going. It never got slow because I was running too many things. Linux is the same way, right? I mean, you can eventually run enough stuff that you'll slow your machine down, but it takes a lot. Whereas like Windows, I mean, you just turn it on and to me it feels slow immediately. They just don't have the best scheduler built into the NT stuff, in my opinion. But all of their software just feels bloated and overdone a lot of times. Now I use Visual Studio Code, and that's a Microsoft product. It's open source, and I think it's a great code editor. So that one I really do like. Actually, it's a pretty good code editor. But yeah, Microsoft stuff. I'm always happy if somebody wants to go into open source. And actually, remotely, Microsoft open sourcing .NET Core is what makes remotely possible, because it's built on .NET Core, and that's what, that's where it runs. So yeah, all for anybody putting out open source stuff. I don't mind if somebody wants to move into open source. If you've looked at the Windows 11 preview and you looked at several of these different distros like Zorin OS, that's coming out in Zorin OS 16, I think has a kind of a middle of the bar kind of option. The 2104 version of Pop OS that I'm using right now has all the stuff in the middle of the bar. So if you've looked at Windows 11, they moved all their stuff to the middle of the bar, and their menus look very similar to all these things. So I still say, nobody wants to believe me, but I still say one of these days, because with the Windows Subsystem for Linux Part 2, where now you can run graphical Linux stuff on Windows, eventually, man, Windows is just going to sneakily move it into Linux, and all these people that are building stuff for, on Linux for Windows, it's just going to start working, and Windows is just going to, Microsoft's not going to have to worry about a kernel anymore. They're just going to start using the Linux kernel. People say I'm insane. I might be. Maybe I'm wrong, but it'd be awesome if I was right, because that would make me really consider maybe using Windows at some point, because it would be so much better. But yeah, that Microsoft's okay. I'm glad if anybody moves into open source, it's awesome. That's great. Scott Team Mesh Central is great. I love it too. Yes, absolutely. The guy Yalan, I think is his name, that does the Mesh Central stuff. He has his own videos out there, by the way. So if you're ever interested in looking at Mesh Central and seeing what it can really do with like a Windows ecosystem, go check out his videos as well on Mesh Central, because they really will show you like all kinds of stuff you can do with it that I haven't done, because I'm not a Windows user for one thing. But definitely, yeah, Mesh Central's terrific. Let's see. I appreciate that. Let's see. Pyrolyser, I think I'm saying that right. Pyrolyser, yeah, I appreciate the encouragement. I try not to get discouraged. I really like, for some reason, one of my videos just took off. It was one of the videos that I did about the tools for looking at your networking stuff. And it went crazy through the roof, and I don't know what made it do that. I haven't ever figured out what I happened to do that was special or different about that one. But man, my subscriber count shot up. So if you ever watch any YouTuber, they'll tell you, and a lot of them say it now, like in their plea for for thumbs ups, like I do. They'll say, "Hey, we noticed that only so many % of you are subscribed, that are watching our videos. So go subscribe." And I'm like, well, I guess that's people who need that video. They don't need every video you make, which makes sense to me, right? So yeah, I try not to get discouraged, but I do want the subscribers to go up, because that does help with all of the weird YouTube algorithms. Thumbs up, of course, help, because it tells YouTube, hey, people like this. Maybe you should share it with more people, right? But yeah, I try not to get discouraged about it. I know that I'm in a very niche area with open source self-hosted software, so I don't expect to ever hit like 100,000 subscribers or 1 million subscribers. If I did, I think that'd be amazing. Like, I see this guy named Network Chuck. Some of you guys have probably seen his channel. You're probably subscribed. He does some pretty cool stuff, way over my head sometimes. But he's got like 1.3 million subscribers. And I'm sitting here going, how on earth does a guy who talks about extremely deep level networking get 1.3 million subscribers? But he does really great videos, and he does break things down like really simple, which is kind of nice. And I've liked some of the stuff he's done. I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, it'd be great to hit some high subscribers someday. I make a little bit of money off of YouTube, but it's nothing like, it's not like I'm going to quit my day job or anything. It's nice, it's extra cash. If my nieces want to go do something when they come visit, we've got the cash to go do it. But it's definitely not like, hey, this is going to pay all your bills, go quit your job tomorrow. So I'll keep doing it just because I like doing it. But yeah, it's there's a time crunch for sure. But I try to get it at least once a week for you guys. Scott thinks Windows will have a Linux kernel too. Good. I'm glad I'm not the only crazy one. That's awesome. Oh, great. That's awesome. Let's see. What's my source for? Maybe. Let me see. So Nginx. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. But you're asking what is my source for new open source software? I don't really have one. A lot of these projects aren't new. Some of these projects have been around forever. I go through the self-hosted Reddit a lot just because I like the stuff that they've got. There's a lot of people asking questions. I'm getting now to where I can contribute back and answer some of their questions sometimes. You know, but I see a lot of really cool stuff on the self-hosted Reddit. I check out the open source Reddit. I love Reddit, by the way. I think that's one. It took me a long time to find it. I wish I'd known about it 10 years ago, but Reddit's awesome. It's one of as far as social media goes, I'm not a huge Facebook person. I have it for my family, but even they kind of drive me crazy with Facebook stuff, so I get on it about once a month other than posting that my video is up on Facebook. So if you ever try to find me on Facebook and try to friend me, don't feel bad if I didn't answer, because I just don't get on Facebook that much. Twitter used to be a good place for news, but these days I just get so much spammy kind of stuff that it's not funny, so I really don't even look at Twitter much anymore. Reddit has really kind of become my place because I can very, very, very much curate what I look at and what I see on my own little kind of channel there. But self-hosted Reddit, open source Reddit are both great. And then there's some pretty good GitHub projects out there that try to keep track of open source projects. There's one called Kickball, awesome, self-hosted, I think is what it's called. So that one has a lot of open source stuff. It's not just open source, there is some paid stuff on there that's self-hostable, but there's a lot of open source stuff on there. And then I think there's a Kickbutt, awesome self-host or awesome open source kind of thing. I can't remember what it's called, I'm sorry. It's a GitHub thing too, where they've got just tons and tons and tons of categories for open source software. But yeah, it just depends. Like sometimes I'm just looking for something. I'm like, well, let me go see what's out there for open source options for that. Sometimes you guys suggest things to me and I'll go check it out, and that'll get me into a whole category of software that I start looking at. Yeah, I you know, just follow different things and find different places that have good information. But I mean, honestly, like a lot of these things aren't new. Like Pi-hole's several years old now, you know. Ntop has been around forever. This NG kind of web interface is kind of the only new thing about it. I still use it to kind of monitor my network traffic on my network. It runs in Docker. It's awesome. It tells me where my big talking machines are and what's going on, you know, and you can go here and go to all these different things, do all kinds of filtering and stuff on it to see what's going on in your network. So I love this tool as well, in case you're not sure about what I'm saying. Ntop NG is awesome, but yeah, this is not new. And if you go to their website, you can tell very quickly it's not new. But it's really an amazing tool. So yeah, it's not always new open source software, but one thing about new open source software, if you want me to kind of say something different about it, is that I look at it very cautiously, because when something's brand new, you could get a developer who just did something for fun and he put it on GitHub because it's free to put it there, and then you go grab it, and then 6 other people go grab it, and then more people grab it, and you know, suddenly that guy's going, I don't have time to support this thing with all the issues you guys are giving me and all the enhancement requests you guys are giving me, and I have a full-time job and you're not wanting to pay me to use this thing. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about new projects. Kind of see how long they're going to go, and having the back of your mind before you dedicate production use to some of those things, that this thing could stop at any point. And that's the truth for any open source software. But if you find things that seem well supported, if you find things that have a good model for supporting it financially, then I think those are the ones that are likely to stick around, and those are the ones that I look for as well. So I hope I answered your question. I know I talk a lot, but hopefully I answered your question in there somewhere. Let's see. Fine Wine 2.0 GitLab. I don't know what that is, G. Scott. I'll have to go check that out and see what it is. What Linux OS do I use? So mostly my OS is Ubuntu-based systems, just because I'm used to the Ubuntu basically bash terminology for doing things. But this one that I'm using right now is Zorin OS, so it's just got kind of a Windowsy kind of look. I just use this layout. They have 3 or 4 different layouts you can pick from their little theming thing. But I like this one. It's fine. It's kind of, you know, pretty, I guess what you call the normal desktop layout for a lot of operating systems. But Zorin's pretty fast. I like what they do. They usually put out a release for each long-term support release that Ubuntu does. They'll put out a release where they've got their own UI and own kind of stuff on top of it, and it's really clean and really nice. But they didn't hit that 2004 mark as soon as they normally would. They do have their 16 beta out right now, though, so this is 15.3 and they've got 16, so I'm kind of waiting to see when that one comes out to full production. I'll probably grab it and update. But they don't have a good upgrade path, which also kind of bugs me. You have to like do a pave and reinstall with their stuff. So I'd like for them to get a better upgrade path, but you know, beyond that, yeah, Zorin OS is on this one. I've got Zorin OS on one of my servers that I use on a laptop out there, just because I was installing it, so I had it on a USB drive, so I put it on there, and I really just use it as a server and almost never log into the GUI. And then the other one that I had was Kubuntu, which is on a lot of my videos. So a lot of people asked me what that one was. That was Kubuntu 2004, where it kind of had this layout as well, and it had a menu that came up and different things. It was a nice distro and very clean, very fast for KDE. I was really surprised at how fast KDE 5 is now. But I did switch that one to Pop! OS because my Linux users group last month used Pop! OS as their distro of the month. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go in whole hog and install this thing straight up on a machine, and I did. So yeah, that's my OSs that I use for the most part, mostly Linux. I do have Mac for my work. I have a MacBook Pro and an iPad 12-inch Pro for my work as well. And then I use iPhone for my personal devices. My family all has iPhones, and I can support them because it's all the same, and I don't have to worry about them going and buying a different Android phone that I have to figure out where settings are and stuff like that if they're having issues. So yeah, I do like the iOS for that reason, from supportability reason more than anything. And then yeah, most of my OSs are Linux though. I run Ubuntu server on that server that I have that's headless, and well, I run Proxmox on it, and then I run Ubuntu server as a VM inside of that. But yeah, that's most of my operating systems. Let's see. Monitoring application do I use? DT, is that aimed at what I was just showing with the NTOP NG, or is that something else that you're asking about? Because I'm not sure what you mean. Let's see. Deepin is interesting. Deepin is definitely an interesting one. Deepin, the only problem I see with it sometimes when I install it is it still has places where they haven't completely finished the translations. So you get into Chinese, and I don't read Mandarin or Cantonese at all. So that you know, if there's a setting that I'm probably looking for and it's not in English, unfortunately, I am not worldly enough to know how to read that, and I'm too lazy to go try to translate it in Google Translate or something. So that's the only issue I've come up with Deepin. Deepin's been awesome since it came out, in my opinion. I think it's really great, and it's gotten refined a lot, so it's getting even better every time they put out a new one. But yeah, Deepin's pretty cool. Yeah, Docker is how I install the NTOP NG. Yeah, I run everything on Docker, and I have a video out there on how I installed NTOP NG. So it's a Docker Compose file that really kind of helps you get everything set up so that you're using the right interface to do all the detection, and it's, you know, looking on the right ports and stuff like that. So I had a video that I did on NTOP NG if you're interested in getting it set up if you don't have it that way yet. Yeah, I really like using it from Docker just because, again, it's really easy to kind of maintain it and keep it up to date. Let's see. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. The Fine Wine 2.0. I'm going to check that out and see what that's about. That's cool. Because I used to use GitLab. I stopped because I haven't been really committing much code for anything that I've been messing with lately. I'm so busy all the time, I don't do much coding anymore. But I need to get back into it because it'd be great for just keeping documentation and stuff like that too. So GitLab, yeah. Git is another one that I want to kind of check out. People have talked pretty highly about Git as well. Oh yeah, my Docker servers and stuff. So the actual server itself is definitely webmin. So maybe you see the webmin thing here and you're wondering what that is. So yeah, like the actual the server itself. I mean, so it depends on what I'm running and where I'm running it. But this one I run for my server, my Ubuntu headless server, because one, it's clicky. You know, Windows admins hate things that are in the terminal a lot of times. I don't know why. I think they've gotten more used to it now with PowerShell, because PowerShell is pretty badass, to be honest. But I'm probably going to get censored on YouTube for that. But yeah, I use Webmin to kind of keep an eye on my server, and I actually installed a theme yesterday because I'd never done it before, and it was a theme based on I can't remember. Anyways, it was okay, but honestly, this is like this is cleaner. This is what it came with, like out of the box, and I love all the charts and stuff like that are right here. It updates, you know, every couple of seconds. You can kind of see it updating different things, but yeah, Webmin's great, and you can do all kinds of stuff through the UI here. I still do a lot of stuff through the terminal just because I'm a terminal kind of person. But yeah, just knowing that I can open up Webmin and go check out, you know, why is this file not showing up in the terminal? Is it really not there, or am I just doing something wrong? And Webmin gives me kind of a graphical view of that stuff. I can go do that. I can do updates through here, of course, and things like that. But now, if you're asking about Docker specifically, then Portainer is probably really kind of where I kind of draw the line at keeping track of things in Docker. I love Portainer, like I said. Portainer here, agent here, agent here, and I'd really just kind of control all of these from one place. So I can just go here and click into my containers, and I can see all of the containers that I'm running pretty easily. And yeah, I mean, I can see whether they're running, whether they're healthy, you know, that kind of stuff. And you know, if I forget what port it's on for some weird reason, I can go look here and see what port it's on. But yeah, this is Portainer's a terrific tool. I love it. It's been great for keeping track of all my stuff. So that's if that, I don't know which way you're asking, but that's kind of how I do most of my monitoring of different things, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, if you're saying how do I monitor like what's up and what's down, I use Chow. I think Chow's on my other server, so if you guys haven't seen that video, I have a video on that one as well. I have a couple of them that are monitoring kind of things that'll let you know when stuff's up and down. And Chow's been great because it tells me almost right away, like, hey, something went down. And it is, it's right here at the bottom. Yeah, CIAO is an awesome tool. And really there's a UI for it, but I don't have to get in it very often unless I'm adding a new site that I want to monitor. But basically you get in, give it the URL or the IP address, and it goes and checks, and it says, hey, it's up. And if that status changes, it checks every so many minutes. It'll send you an email and be like, hey, this thing just went down. Or you can set it up, I think, to send messages through other things too. Email's fine for me. But yeah, that thing just tells me, hey, this thing, the status changed. And like my show notes, once in a while, I think SSD nodes does an update in the middle of the night or something, and it kind of like interrupts the connection, because it'll like, hey, this thing went to 500. And then in a few minutes it'll send it before I've even woken up in the morning. It'll be like, oh, it's back to 200, don't worry, like everything's up and running. So I like that, and I monitor a few of these things with that as far as my web applications to know if they're up and down and stuff like that, to get notifications. But yeah, Chow's a really cool tool. I like it quite a bit. And there's smoke ping, stat ping, there's 400, there's thousands of open source projects out there, and a lot of them there's just dozens of options, so whatever you want to use is great. But yeah, definitely Chow for monitoring, I guess, if you want to call it that, for getting notifications. Let's see. Yacht. I've looked at Yacht. So I did. I installed Yacht, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. It, at the time, did not have as much information as Portainer has. It was okay. It seemed like a cool tool. I hope that they're still continuing development. I need to go back and check it, but I want to give it a little bit more time because it was very early and it didn't seem to quite have everything that I have here in Portainer for managing this stuff. But it looked like it was a promising thing, and I think when I first read the guy's post about Yacht over on Self-Hosted, I think I saw the first post he put about it. He said he was unhappy with Portainer because on the stacks he couldn't use like version 3 Docker Compose files. So he made Yacht to kind of help get past that, which was awesome. But now Portainer supports version 3 stuff, so they've kind of made some improvements on that kind of side of things as well. So yeah, I haven't switched over to Yacht yet, but it's pretty cool. It's got a nice UI to it for sure. I'll do a video on that one eventually, but I want to give them a little more time to get that a little bit more matured. I am not a Vim or Emacs guy. I'm a Nano guy. People have a heart attack when I do that. But if you watch my videos, I use Nano. Like, if I can use Nano, I do. Now, inside of Docker containers, there's almost never a text editor installed, and you have to install it yourself. But VI seems to be there a lot of times, and Vi is definitely easy to get set up and going if it's not there. Nano, if it's anything else, I use Nano just because I'm used to the shortcut keys, honestly. I can use Vim, and I've done Vim in the past, and it's okay. But yeah, I'm so used to Nano and the shortcuts that's the one that I tend to use for most things, just because it's also pre-installed with the Ubuntu systems. I don't have to go install Vim separately, so I'd have to go do that. But yeah, if I was going to use one, it'd be Vim. I have used Emacs in the very distant past, way back when I was in graduate school. One of my grad professors used Emacs, and that's what he wanted us to use, so we did. But yeah, it's just not something that stuck with me. Nano's plenty good for what I do 99.9% of the time. So yeah. No, Scott, I don't. I use Eero. So Eero is my network status monitor, which is horrible, but I'll be honest, my house is just laid out in a way that it's kind of long, and then my office is like 45 feet out in the back of my house, so I use the Eero mesh wireless mesh network system all over my house, and it's really fast. I've been trying to find an open source replacement for that, and I have not. I've come up with goose egg on it so far. There's definitely wireless mesh systems, but they're all so slow. Just just painfully slow. And I don't know what kind of weird magic sauce they got going on in the background, but they're keeping it a big secret because I have not seen anybody come out with like, hey, you should try this. Like Batman is out there. I've looked into Batman. I've messed with it quite a bit. I've looked at a lot of people's documentation on it, and I can get Batman running. But then I don't have the routing knowledge of, okay, now I can get these guys to talk and it's fast. How do I route my internet traffic over to that guy and tell him he needs to go out? You know, that's where I fall down a little bit. So OpenWRT is one that I want to look at, but I don't have any hardware that really supports it well right now. So yeah, so Scott, yeah, definitely I want something to replace Eero, and I would love to have something more robust for monitoring my network and things like that. But right now, I don't really have anything that does like good network monitoring. You know, just like what is the status of things. So I've got OpenSense installed on a machine. I'm trying to go through a lot of information and understand it and work with it. I used pfSense a long time ago, but I've forgotten a lot of what I did with it. So that one will be one that'll be coming as OpenSense, pfSense as well. If you guys are interested in the firewall and routing stuff there, but I definitely want to be more versed in it before I do any videos on it. So I'm working on that. And then from the OpenWRT side, OpenWisp looks really promising. I'm kind of interested in that one. If you haven't looked at it, OpenWISP is pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm checking into those to kind of get a feel for what else is out there. So Pi-hole, guys, if you haven't checked out Pi-hole, maybe you're using AdGuard, that's fine. But if I use Pi-hole with Unbound, and if you saw my video a couple weeks ago, that's been working terrific. And inside of the Unbound stuff, I didn't show this in the video. Unbound uses upstream root servers for its DNS stuff, of course, but you can tell it like, hey, I want you to use this TLS over DNS server, and you just need to go into the config file and change it and then restart the container, and it'll start doing that. So I do use Pi-hole here on my network, and it helps tremendously with cutting down on ads that come through on web pages, and then of course Unbound, you know, gets me away from using my ISP's DNS settings and stuff like that. So yeah, I really like that quite a bit, and it's DNS over TLS, which is great. Home Assistant. So if you've seen any of my series on Home Assistant, you know that I love Home Assistant, and I use Home Assistant every single day. This is one of my most favorite open source projects ever, because it has just made my life easier. I really started looking at how do I automate my home back in 2018. 2017 is when we moved back to where I live now to move my parents in with us and take care of them. But at the time I still had to travel quite a bit for work, and my wife, because I don't see well, my wife drives me everywhere. So she had to go with me. So we'd be leaving my folks at home in my house. I worried about them being here, so I wanted to get remote control of the thermostat, and remote control of my alarm system, and remote control of, you know, anything that they might need. I wanted to have control of it so that I could help them if they needed it. So yeah, that Home Assistant stuff has just really become more and more important as I've used it, because I've really set things up where I can do so many things remote, and really just make automations that make it even easier, so I don't have to do it, my folks don't have to do it, it just kind of does what it's supposed to do, and it's been very, very solid for me. So I love Home Assistant too. Let's see, any thoughts on self-hosted zero tier? You know, I was going to do a video on zero tier, and you can do the zero tier to a certain extent self-hosted. You can do the whole thing self-hosted. I just haven't found really good documentation on how to actually host the root servers. So you can set up your moon servers, as they call them, and I like zero tier stuff. I think it's pretty cool, but yeah, I haven't gotten to where I feel comfortable enough to do a good video on it yet, because when I say self-hosted, I mean self-hosted. I prefer to say, you know, you can run this whole thing on your own, and with the stuff that I've seen so far, while you can self-host a good part of it, it still depends on their servers. So I really want to get to where I can run the whole thing on my own, and then I'll kind of go through how I set it up and how I did it, and I'm sure people have 10 million questions that I won't be able to answer about it, but I'll do my best, you know, as always. So yeah, zero tier, I like zero tier. It's a pretty cool overlay network for sure. Do I use a wiki for documenting my personal projects? No, I use Joplin Notes. So over on my other screen, I've got my notes. If you've not seen that video, I cannot recommend a note program more than this one. I've just got it in the view right now where you can really only see the notes. And I've got the side panel closed that lets you change notebooks, but it has notebooks, and then it has all the notes in your notebooks, and then you can actually set it up so it's split screen, and you can see basically what you're typing in Markdown, and then of course what you have going here on the right is what it looks like. So if you know Markdown, you can do quite a bit of stuff in Markdown in here, but it does have a rich text kind of control bar up here if you want to do it, and you can type on this side too if you prefer that. But it's fast. It keeps all your stuff local, and then it uses syncing to sync your notes, and it can sync through Dropbox and all kinds of other things. But it also does Nextcloud with WebDAV. So for my email server is Mail in a Box, and it has a Nextcloud instance for the contacts and calendar stuff. So I just use that WebDAV, and all my Joplin installs, I set it up with the WebDAV. So as soon as I make changes and it syncs, the other machines that are running Joplin will get it. If I open Joplin, it'll go and sync, and it'll get all the updates pretty fast, and it really has been tremendous. So this is really where I do all my documentation, and then I'll take it and move it over to the show notes page and clean it up a little bit and stuff like that. But you can see, I mean, I've got tons of stuff here, and I've got tons of other notebooks that aren't showing right now. But yeah, that's really what I use for the most part for my notes is Joplin Notes. It's a tremendous tool. Let me move back over so I can see the chat here. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, DT, definitely check out Chow. It's an awesome program. So you guys can see that it's a little delayed from where you're hearing me and what I'm reading and what's going on. So I'm doing my best to keep up here. Hey Hamza, Joanne, hi. How are you doing? Glad you joined us. Standard notes. You know, I've checked standard notes. Maybe it's changed, but I thought at the time, at least when I looked at it, it was all like browser based, which is fine. But sometimes I'm not somewhere where I have access to the browser or I have access to the internet, but on my phone I can still use Joplin's app and I can do things offline, and as soon as it gets a signal, it'll sync. So that's the only reason I haven't done standard notes. I probably need to go back and look at it. Maybe it's changed because it's been a couple of years since I've looked at that, honestly. But standard notes is another one that gets a lot of credit from a lot of people, for sure. Does it import PDFs? So I don't know what you mean by import PDFs, but like you can pull in a PDF, you can link to a PDF, and it'll show up inside of Joplin Notes if that's what you're saying. Now, if that PDF is on your local machine and it's not up there where it gets synced, I don't know that it'll sync over to another machine. It's going to have a reference to the local file system that's probably not going to make any sense to another machine. So I don't know if that helps, but you can like paste in images and stuff, and I think those things will sync because it'll grab that because you pasted it in. It's part of that file system for Joplin. But yeah, I mean, just things you can try and test out. It's free and it's open source, so go give it a shot. I mean, it's not all it is notes, so give it a try. So screen capture and recording, that's a good one, and I had that on my list actually to talk about. So for screen capture, because I'm a Linux person, right now for streaming I'm using OBS. I don't normally use OBS because it's too much, I guess, is one of the things. But on top of that, for recording, I guess, I really just use Simple Screen Recorder. It's a really great little tool. It's usually pre-installed, but it's in most of the repos. No, that's not the one I want. That's the barcode. Didn't want that. Let's see. Simple Screen Recorder. There it is. There it is. Yeah, Simple Screen Recorder. So see, this thing doesn't even want to close now. It's awesome. It's like broken. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so Simple Screen Recorder is great. It's called Simple Screen Recorder, but actually if you click into it, you'll see that there's quite a bit of functionality to it. You can set your screen dimensions and you can do all kinds of stuff, and it gives you little outlines so you can tell where it is on the screen. And then you can set your audio input very easily, which I like quite a bit. So right now I've only got 2 options, but normally when I have my mics plugged in, I can pick from those mics and everything like that. It's really a tremendous tool. And then you name whatever the file is going to be. You pick your format that you want, give it the quality you want, tell it where you want to store it, of course, all those things, what bit rates you want, things like that. And then, no. I have to change this, sorry, because it's griping. There, we'll do that. Yeah, there we go. So then you get to this page and you can basically preview and kind of see, is it picking up my audio? And you can see there it's picking up something. You can see what it sees and make sure that it's getting everything you want on the screen. And then, you know, once you're done, then you can hit record, and when you're done, stop recording and then save it. And it's very simple, very quick. You know, it's just a super great tool for doing a full screen recording, partial screen, only a window, whatever you want to do. It's not quite as flexible, I guess, as OBS, but it's also not as heavy as OBS. So I do like it. I like that a lot. As far as editing, I use Shotcut 99% of the time. I really love that project. It's a great project, and I've gotten much more used to the workflow and the tools and how to put them together and things. They have a lot of videos from their people that show you how to do a lot of really cool stuff. So that helps too. As far as just, you know, editing otherwise, I've done Kdenlive. I like it quite a bit too. It's got a lot of power, but I've noticed with updates to it, it gets broken a lot. So that breaks my workflow when that happens, and I do like to keep things up to date. So I've kind of switched back to Shotcut and just stuck with it as far as video recording and editing. Did I make one with Nextcloud and WebDAV? I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do with WebDAV, but I mean, I've made several videos about Nextcloud and how to set it up and how to get things going. But yeah, with WebDAV in and of itself, I don't know what you're wanting to do with it, but if you'll send me a message over on discuss.opensourceawesome.com, it's a Rocket Chat server that I have. We can definitely talk about what you're trying to do, and maybe I can come up with a solution. Maybe I can make a video. Just depends on what you're trying to accomplish there. Let's see. Oh, can it import from a PDF? No, I don't know. Haven't tried to do that, so I couldn't even authoritatively tell you. Wouldn't even try to guess, but I would probably guess no, but I don't know that for sure. Haven't tried to do that ever. Let's see. You know, I've tried to use OpenShot, and I love that project, and I love how simple it looks and how, you know, everything about it. But every machine I've ever tried to put it on, I mean, I can just grab like a regular 720p video, and it is just jittery. Like, it will not run smoothly for some reason, and it's got to be my hardware. I don't know what else it could be, but I don't have like specialized graphics cards. I'm just using like laptops and a 10-year-old, 11-year-old iMac now. You know, so I don't have like super current hardware, and maybe that's the problem. I don't know. I love the way that OpenShot looks. Because I'm a simple person. I do simple edits. I don't do a lot of really super crazy stuff, and I think OpenShot could be great for my workflow. But yeah, I've never really gotten it to run smooth, and it kind of bums me out because I think it's an awesome project. And in fact, I was at a Texas Linux Fest where the developer of OpenShot came and gave a presentation about it. And he was like the only guy working on it at the time. He may still be. It's all C++, so I really feel like it should be fairly lightweight and work pretty well. But yeah, I don't know. I've never been able to get to run them right on my hardware, so I just don't get to use it. But maybe one of these days I'll get one of those M1 Macs, and they'll have Linux where it'll run on it and be able to use all that stuff, and I can run OpenShot. I don't know. I shouldn't have to get an M1 Mac to do that. It's just, you know, I feel like that's what it's going to take for OpenShot to run for me for some reason. Yeah, so Scott T, I would definitely use Shotcut over the other two, just because I do know the workflow better. I have done videos on Kdenlive, on Shotcut, and on Olive, the Olive project, which is another video editor. And Olive has redone their project recently and changed a bunch of stuff about it, so my video is probably way outdated. But the workflow, I think, changed quite a bit, and I haven't really gotten to kind of read up on it and figure it out. But it looks definitely like it would break the crud out of my workflow, and I'm already kind of crunched for time a lot of times. So it's really more for me of jumping software is about, do I have the time to do it? And you know, with stuff like video editing, I definitely don't have the time to do it right now. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the stuff that I just wish that I had the time to do it, I guess. I'm gonna go back to this tab over here. So Jellyfin, I've done videos on Jellyfin. I need to do an updated video on Jellyfin. I don't know if you guys are interested in it or not, but if you use Plex or if you use MB or if you use Kodi or something like that, and you've been looking for a really good media player, man, I love Jellyfin, and I've been using it for years. And now it has official apps for like Roku, and they've got a beta app you can get on Test Flight for the Apple TV that I kind of want to get. The little web app for the phone works perfectly fine for me. Didn't have any issues with it, but they have a new app I think that's getting ready to come out for the iOS side as well. They've got a few third-party apps for iOS as well. But Jellyfin is completely open source media server, And getting it set up in Docker is just super straightforward. It takes a little bit of setup and a little bit of kind of prep, but once you've got it set, I mean, it's so easy to get stuff going. I just love it, and I use it. I've got my mom set up with an account on it so she can stream shows that I've got on there for her. And then, of course, I've got myself set up with an account. And, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, I've got, like, my movies. I've got my archive, which is kind of older TV shows. And then I've got my TV shows that would be more current things that I bring in, you know, to kind of watch. And, yeah, like, you know, here's my archive. So I rip things down, and I haven't updated my archive because I moved everything from the server it was on to my other bigger server. But yeah, I mean, this is just running. It's great. I'm just slowly, you know, just basically syncing stuff over. And as I get things ripped or get things pulled down, you know, I put my videos on here and my shows. And, you know, if you go into these things, you can see more information. You know, it's got a nice layout. Lots of information about the stars and things like that, and of course you can see kind of the up next videos and stuff like that too. So yeah, I really like Jellyfin. This is one that we definitely use every single night, religiously probably, because we just have so many things that by the end of the day at 9:30 at night, we want to sit down and just watch something. We'll watch an episode of Night Court or an episode of Frasier or, you know, something, and just kind of relax and go mindless for a little bit before we go to bed. And yeah, we love it. My mom loves Northern Exposure. She's a huge fan of that show now. So yeah, Jellyfin is a tremendous one. If you've never watched or looked at my old one, it's still valid. But I definitely want to do an update on Jellyfin as well. See, I need to get a tuner, Scott. That's one thing that I definitely need to get, is something that'll let me do that. Let's see. Set up my phone with Nextcloud for. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I have done that. It's actually not as hard as you think. Once you kind of set things up, so I'll try to do a video on it. You're asking about Nextcloud and putting it on your phone for the contacts and calendar stuff. I've got that on my phone right now, actually, through my Mail-in-a-Box stuff, and it works fine. And once I started setting it up, really the phone kind of picked up like, oh, hey, I see that you're trying to do this, and it just kind of walked me through a wizard, which was great. So I didn't have to do a lot of weird stuff to get it going. But that's with my Mail-in-a-Box setup that kind of set up the Nextcloud on its own. So I need to test it with just a straight-up install of Nextcloud and make sure that it works the same way. But I think that was just a straight install of Nextcloud where they kind of linked it between the Mail-in-a-Box stuff. So Chris, I will absolutely do an update on Jellyfin. It is actually on my list of videos that I'm planning to make, so I will be getting to an update on that because I'm excited about it too, and it's just come so far since I did the last video, honestly, that it's totally worthwhile. I did one on Apache. Apache hasn't really changed since I did that video, but I like Apache as a music server. If you guys haven't ever checked it out, if you're looking for a music server specifically, I really like Apache quite a bit. It's got a pretty good UI. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it does what I need, and it lets me import all my music, and then it lets me set up playlists and stuff like that. And then it's got any of the subsonic apps that you can get for iOS or Android seem to work with it pretty well. So yeah, I like Apache quite a bit for music stuff, and I use it pretty regularly as well. Now Jellyfin does have a music server, and you saw that I had music set up, but you saw it wasn't bringing up any cover art, so I don't know what it's trying to go look at, so I still need to dig in a little bit there. It does let me do some stuff, but I just haven't figured out the Jellyfin music side of it yet. Maybe it'd be okay, but Apache is definitely the one that I'm using for music these days. Here you can see kind of my downloading apps, and I did a video on this with IbraCorp a couple months ago now, on how to set these guys up and really how to get them running all together and looking in the same places so that everything's kind of working as a single unit. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go check that out. But Jacket is kind of what checks out your different locations for trying to find files. Sonar kind of does your media management and says, oh, hey, here's something I want. And then QBitTorrent, of course, will pull down torrents for you, and then these guys can kind of help manage all that stuff. So I love these things. I haven't no regular TV stuff running right now, so nothing's happening with them. They just kind of sit there, but they run fine. And then, of course, Expressvpn is the VPN that I use to run these things. For my other VPN stuff, I use PryTunnel, and I've done videos on that too. It's an awesome little GUI for setting up OpenVPN and WireGuard, and then pulling down configs for your desktops. And then you can get configs for your phone, but they don't have a WireGuard way to do it on your phone, which was the only thing that bummed me out. But you can still do OpenVPN through it. So like when we go to hotels and stuff, We haven't done that for a long time, but when we did, my wife, has her machines, I have my machines, and I made sure we were both set up so that we just connect the Pride Tunnel and use the hotel Wi-Fi and feel much more secure about doing that. So definitely Pride Tunnel is one, and the Pride Tunnel client is really nice. It's a nice GUI even on Linux. It's an Electron app, but it works fine. Solid Invoice, I'm going to be doing a video on soon. And this one I just found. People have asked me for Invoice Ninja for a while, and I've used Invoice Ninja in the past, and I installed it straight up on Metal at the time, and it's even gotten more complicated than when I did it, and that was 10 years ago. But Invoice Ninja was okay, not 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago. But the freaking Docker stuff for Invoice Ninja is miserable. I've tried so many times and tried to fix so many little things. I've tried other people's Docker images and Docker Compose files, and nothing ever works. It always just gives me errors no matter what I do, just crazy errors that I'm like, I don't understand why it's doing this, and it's errors that don't make any sense to me. So I finally just said, I've got to find something else. And honestly, there are so many really cool looking open source invoicing solutions out there. So if you have a small business or a need for invoicing, I'm going to have one of these coming out soon. But the Solid Invoice is great. It's very straightforward, very simple. It's got a nice UI. It's easy to use. But yeah, I'll have a video coming for it soon, and this is all like Zoom's way out. But yeah, I mean it's a nice one. So I got it working. I've got a compose file that I created to make it much easier to get up and running than what they show from their Solid Invoice Docker Hub thing. But yeah, I'll share all that stuff with you guys too. So if you're interested in invoicing, that one's coming. It is not Invoice Ninja, and I just said forget Invoice Ninja. It was just too freaking complicated, and I at some point I'm like, if it's too complicated for me, I don't feel like I could, even if I got it running, I don't feel like I would be confident in showing you guys how to do it. So no, I don't have any self-hosted offline voice recognition. I've looked at a few voice recognition things. They're there, but the thing about voice recognition is getting it to be trained, and getting a good model under the machine learning that it needs in order to kind of figure out what you're saying and what you want and what you expect. I think that's kind of the downfall of something self-hosted these days. That you still are going to rely on somebody's library, and hopefully their library is pretty good if you can find one. But that's why Google and Alexa are actually, and I'm sorry if I set off anybody's stuff just now, but that's why they're so good. Because they use everything that everybody in the world is saying all the time to train their systems. Siri is not quite that good because Apple doesn't quite go to the same extent, but Apple is definitely listening. Don't think that they're not, right? If I said, hey, what's your name over there, my little ball would start talking to me. But the voice recognition has gotten really good, but again, because so many people use it and they're able to use that to constantly train and refine those things. So yeah, I've looked at it and I thought, man, that'd be great to get it, but I just haven't found one that I felt like, man, this is terrific. Now, MIT has some cool stuff with Almond, I think version 2, that I want to check out, but I haven't had time to sit down and do it, and that's one of those things I definitely need like a weekend to sit down and really focus on what I'm doing and figure out what I want to get done. But yeah, good question. I prefer Rocket Chat over Zulip. I've done a video on Zulip and it was nice, but I prefer Rocket Chat over Mattermost, Zulip, any of them, just because I like the layout, I like the level of control that it's got. It's very clean to me, very, very simple to use. The little mobile app is pretty great. I can resize the text, which is awesome, because for me, in my eyes, that's a big thing. So yeah, I really like Rocket Chat. Mattermost would probably be a close second, to be honest, but yeah, Rocket Chat for me has been great, and I would have I might have gone with Mattermost for my discussion forum board there if they had an easier way to kind of set up other authenticators. But everything I could find showed that you needed a paid version to do that, and I didn't want to force people to have to create accounts on the discussion site, So I like that Rocket Chat. Let me just set up Google Auth and GitLab or GitHub Auth and some of those other authentication providers, so that if you guys already had an account, which you should for YouTube, or maybe you have one for GitHub, it was easy for you to log in and not have to go create another account. You just authorize the application to use that. So that was one of the reasons that I really kind of went with Rocket Chat over Mattermost. Other than that, those two are really, really close in my opinion, functionality wise. But Zulip, yeah, I don't know. I just never really got into Zulip. It was good. It was nice, but I don't know. I never got into it. Password manager is definitely Bitwarden, and I use their online service, and I even pay them for some of the extras because I want to support that project because it has been a tremendous tool for me. You know, LastPass and whatever the other ones are, 1Password and all those guys. I don't know. I never liked them. Password things. It's a weird thing that I don't trust people, but I'm trusting Bitwarden with it. But you know, yeah, man. I would like to self-host it, but I'm one of those people that would just mindlessly blow away a server and all of my passwords with it, and that is a terrible thing. So it freaks me out to think that I'm self-hosting my own password manager, and I just have so many passwords. I mean, like any site that I sign up for, I let it generate a password for me. I don't create passwords anymore. I just don't even try. I just let it do it, and I use the tools that it has built in. So definitely Bitwarden's been great. VaultWarden, I think, is like a split from Bitwarden, right? I haven't read about it much. I've seen it here and there on some of the Reddit stuff, but I haven't had a chance to dig in. But I think VaultWarden is kind of a split off from Bitwarden to give you some extra functionality. Maybe I can't remember what the deal was there, but yeah, that's definitely the one I use for password management. Let's see. Okay, option for family organizer with notes, task, and calendar. Oh man, okay, so all right, Calvin, I have not done anything with that yet. I feel like I want to because my family does get kind of busy, but with the pandemic, I didn't have to worry about what they were doing. I knew what they were doing. They were here at the house because I didn't let them go anywhere because I told them that wasn't going to happen. If somebody needed to go somewhere, I went and my wife went and we took care of things because we're just younger and I felt like we had a better chance, you know, of surviving if we got anything. But yeah, I think that's one that I definitely want to look at and look into because it is a useful tool. I think Nextcloud could almost provide all of that, but maybe that's too much for what you're looking for. So I'll look around and see if I see some other options too, though. That's a good question. I like that. Let's see. Keepass I used for a long time, and Keepass had a great integration on Windows. I want to say it was like 7. When I was at my work, I used Keepass to help me remember all the passwords I had to have for work. And it had like a little shortcut like Control Shift A or Control Alt A or something. I can't remember what it was, but it would paste your passwords even into like a regular just application. It didn't care what was open. It didn't just have to be a browser. So that was kind of awesome. I really liked that. But yeah, Keepass was great. But as I started moving more and more into the browser, I never saw an update to Keepass that let me do it very easily in the browser. So that's why I kind of moved over to Bitwarden, just because it had the stuff. My wife used Keepass because I set her up with it forever as well, and still has a bunch of stuff in there, I think. So I've been slowly trying to get her to move to Bitwarden just because it's easier for us to manage. But yeah, yeah, Keepass was great. Let's see. Hey, from Kenya, thank you. I appreciate it. Africa, another one from Africa, man. That's awesome. Yeah, you know, I love that I can reach people around the world and show them something, hopefully useful. Hopefully something useful. If you guys ever leave one of my videos going, "Why in the world did you do that?" You know, don't put a comment on there, but send me a message and say I didn't understand why you did that. I want to know, like, if I missed the mark fully, let me know on those things. But hope you guys love my content. I hope you'll continue to watch my content and share with people. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, Calvin, my pleasure. I'll see what I can find. I have trust issues too, man. Don't feel like you're a loner. Okay, we all have trust issues. That's why we like to self-host things, right? That's our thing. That's why we like open source software. Neth server. Oh man, that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one that I want to look at too. And somebody asked me about that. Oh man, 4 or 5 years ago at my lug. I need to check it out and see what's going on with it because I haven't looked at that project in a long time. But I will. I'll check it out and see what's going on, and maybe I can do a video on that one too. That's a good one. I like that Neth server. That's a great suggestion. WeCan. I've used WeCan in the past. It's a pretty good little Kanban board. I like it. There's some other ones out there that are pretty good too. WeCan's gotten better over time though. But honestly, when GitLab set it up so that I had a little Kanban board inside of GitLab for doing like my process on little personal projects that I was working on. That's the one that I switched to. Now, if you're just trying to do like project management, I think Weekend's a really cool tool, and it gives you a great self-hosted option there as far as that goes. As far as Kanban goes, I don't use anything Kanban these days, but except for work, and my work uses Jira, which yeah, I'm not a fan of Jira. In case anybody wasn't aware, I don't like Jira at all. But yeah. So Ghost, I run Ghost for my show notes, of course, and I'm in that one obviously every week at least, if not every day. And then Rocket Chat is my discussion server. So if you guys ever want to get on and have discussions with me, we can definitely do that. The other open source tools that I use pretty regularly, I guess, would be just Linux itself, the Bash terminal. I just do a lot of stuff in the terminal, and you watch me do things in the terminal. I've done TrueNAS Scale. I've got it still as a VM. I don't run it every day, but I keep thinking I want to move back and try to start moving some of these things over to it. But that's another one where I need time to sit down and focus on it and do it. But yeah, I'm really kind of excited about that one. And then really just any kind of tools that I can get on my desktop that are open source. LibreOffice I use quite a bit. If I can avoid using Microsoft Office, I do, but sometimes I just have to do that for my work. There's no way around it. My work really, it's almost all proprietary software, and I kind of feel like, well, that's their money. If they want to buy me that software that's super expensive, great. But if they ever ask me for open source alternatives, I will gladly jump in and tell them what I know. But yeah, for the most part, in my personal life and anything that I do, I try to use open source software. These are kind of the top tools, I guess, that I use. Now I've got my little Joplin notes thing over here that I can check out before we finish up here, and I'll try to drag it over. There we go. Yeah, maybe. There we go. So yeah, I think I've gone through almost all these. Yeah, Mail in a Box for Discourse for my lug. If you've never run a Discourse website, it's a pain. But it's a really, really awesome forum website. So Discourse is really great, and I use Discourse for my lug quite a bit. That's really where we do all of our talking. Let's see, Ghost Blog, yes. Simple Screen Recorder we talked about. I just want to go through the Audacity. So Audacity's had some serious waves in the last couple of weeks or a couple of months. I'm still using it right now, but as soon as somebody makes a build of an offshoot, I'll probably switch over to whatever it is. But I'm trying to use Audacity more because the audio quality. I'm trying to give you guys better audio quality when I make these videos. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure that the air conditioner's cut out of the background and that it's not super quiet when I move to get closer to the monitor and things like that. So I'm really trying to do better audio editing, because I know some of my videos, especially in the beginning, were just really miserable, and I just didn't know enough about audio editing to know how to fix it. Jitsi Meet, definitely use Jitsi Meet, and I self-host Jitsi Meet with my lug, and I love Jitsi Meet. It's an awesome tool. I use their online service as well, just because it's great. Some friends and I, every week at the end of the week, at the very last hour of the day on Friday from work, we get on a Jitsi Meet conference and just do a decompress virtually, because we're all over the country. But it's great for us to just sit back and talk about whatever we want. Nothing to do with work. Sometimes stuff to do with work, right? We just get on and chat, and it's great. So Jitsi Meet's a tremendous tool as well, and I love that it's open source and it's got so much power. And they've done so much work on it since the pandemic started to try to meet the needs of people, which I think is amazing and excellent. I love it. So yeah, Jitsi Meet's another one that I just can't say enough good things about. Docker VirtualBox, yes, I use VirtualBox for one Windows machine. Once in a while you guys will see it pop up in a video, but for the most part I try not to run that thing if I don't have to. Let's see, I just want to see if I missed any big ones here that might be interesting to you guys. Handbrake, if you guys have never used Handbrake, I love Handbrake for ripping my DVDs and putting them in like Jellyfin and stuff like that. It's an amazing tool. I know there's FFmpeg, but I think Handbrake uses FFmpeg in the background anyways. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, here's my hardware that I run, if you can read it. But yeah, let me see what else we've got here. I see a few more comments. I'm going to wrap this thing up here in about in about 3 minutes, because we've been going for a long time, and I appreciate you guys joining me, and I appreciate the questions and the enthusiasm. It's been really, really tremendous doing this. I'm always nervous about live streams, but I promise if I come up with another topic for a live stream, I will absolutely do it. So if you guys are interested in more live streams, for one, let me know that. But also, yeah, I want to wrap this up. So I'm going to see if there's any more questions here real quick that I can blather on about. Get allowed to pull all software that you review. Yeah, I should. I don't know if I will, but I like the suggestion. Let's see. Open Office from beta. Oh my gosh, wow, that was a long time ago. That's awesome. Man, Calvin, me and you both need to spend more time on our Linux skills, because I use Linux all the time, but I could honestly be far more skilled with Linux and understand it even better than I do. So believe me, you're not alone with that one. LUG is Linux Users Group. So when I was in Lubbock, Texas, I started a Linux Users Group, so it's called the Lubbock LUG. And I was very fortunate that I put a post on Craigslist way back when it was free to do that, that I was looking for somebody that had a place. I had the equipment and kind of the desire to do it, and a really great person answered me and said, "Hey, I've got the place, and I've got a projector, and I've got a big space for us to meet. Let's get this thing started." So he and I started a Lubbock Linux users group, and we got over the years we've probably had 40 members, or 40 people who came regularly, at least at some point. But it really spikes up and down, and it's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 of us, 6 of us, 7 of us. But we get together once a month and just talk about Linux and open source software and the things that we're doing in the projects, and really we're good friends at this point. We like to just sit and chat and talk about life as well. So yeah, that's what LUG is. It's a Linux users group. Sorry about that. Let's see, Handbrake. Yeah, I love Handbrake. It's a great tool. Scribus? No, I've never gotten into Scribus, Scott. That's a good question. I need to look at that one though and see kind of where it can fit in. Let's see. Yeah. So good. All right. I'm sure I did not hit everybody's questions, and I do apologize if I missed your questions. I tried to hit as many as I can, as quick as I can. I know it's delayed, but guys, I truly appreciate your time today. I appreciate you jumping on and just listening to me blather on about open source software. But I believe that today I could probably switch everything I do to open source software. Every single thing that I do. I don't know that there's a single piece of closed source software that I would absolutely need in order to run a business, in order to be successful with that business, and in order to do my job even at work. I could almost switch to completely open source software, except for a few things that they really kind of insist on us using. There's just no choice, right? That's my company. That's what they tell me to do. That's what I do. But honestly, almost everything that they have me do, there's an open source option that is just as good or better out there. So I am your open source advocate. You guys are advocates for open source as well. I can tell by the questions and the enthusiasm. I hope you appreciate the content. I appreciate you guys more than I could ever say. And just truly thank you so much for joining me today, but I appreciate it, and I'll be seeing you guys around. If you'd like to get on the discussion forum, it's discuss, DISCUSS, discuss.opensourceisawesome.com. It's a Rocket Chat server. You can log in through the web, or you can pull down the Rocket Chat phone app, or you can pull down the Rocket Chat desktop app and just jump on and log in and use your Google authentication, your GitLab authentication. If any of the authenticators aren't working, let me know. And I'll try to go fix those. Somebody let me know about Google Authenticator last time I did a live stream, so I tried to go fix it. Hopefully it's working. But yeah, if you guys want to have a discussion, I'm monitoring that one all the time. I try to answer as quick as I can, and I try to give you guys answers as much as I can if I know the answer. But there's other people in there that can answer you as well. So if you post on one of those general channels, it could help. That's it. I appreciate it. You guys have a really great weekend, and I will have a video out very soon for you guys. I don't know if when I end the stream